Tommy Lee Jones disliked Jim Carrey with a rare, unfiltered intensity on the set of 1995's Batman Forever. This wasn't simple artistic friction. Crew members who worked on the film remember a level of contempt they'd never seen before. It wasn't just dislike, one crewer said. It was like Jim's existence offended him. What makes the feud striking is how one-sided it felt. Carrey arrived hoping to connect with a respected Oscar winner. Instead, he met a wall. Their most infamous moment happened off-set. According to Carrey, he approached Jones at a restaurant trying to be friendly, and Jones hugged him, then said, "I hate you. I really don't like you. I cannot sanction your buffoonery." The bluntness stunned Carrey and the crew. In an industry full of diplomatic smiles, Jones' words cut hard. At root, this was a clash of styles and eras. Jones was a restrained, carefully crafted actor, methodical, intense, a recent Oscar winner. Carrey was the explosive, improvisational comedian who became Hollywood's biggest box office draw overnight. On paper, that contrast could have been electric. In practice, it produced friction. Jones viewed Carrey's improvisation and physical comedy as undisciplined and disrespectful to craft. Carrey's frenetic Riddler felt cartoonish to Jones. Jones studied menace felt staid to Carrey's camp. Director Joel Schumacher tried to bridge the gap, pulling both actors aside and encouraging compromise. Let Jim's unpredictability energize scenes. Ask Tommy to find moments of stillness. But those attempts largely failed. According to multiple accounts, Jones refused to rehearse with Carrey and often ran his scenes cold. Minimal interaction, minimal collaboration. Production sources recalled Jones doing his blocking separately, delivering his lines, and leaving before notes were finished. The result: scenes between Two-Face and the Riddler often felt disjointed, as if taken from different films. The clash also reflected shifting power in Hollywood. Carrey's unprecedented commercial success had him commanding huge paychecks and cultural attention. Jones has spent decades building credibility and craft. That imbalance, old-school seriousness versus new-school spectacle, amplified personal offense into a career-long anecdote. After the restaurant confrontation, the relationship never warmed. They maintained a cold professionalism on set, but avoided any extra contact. For the crew, the moment became emblematic. The industry's ability to fake warmth one moment and show raw cruelty the next. For the actors, it was a collision that left a permanent footnote in both careers, a vivid example of how personality, style, and changing times can turn co-stars into rivals. In the end, the Jones-Carrey story is less about gossip and more about the fault lines of enacting itself. Restraint versus chaos, craft versus spectacle, the old guard and the new. On Batman Forever, those fault lines didn't reconcile, they exploded. On set, the tension peaked during the scenes where the villains plotted against Batman. These sequences required long shoots with both actors present, creating a pressure cooker atmosphere the crew called excruciating. Tommy Lee Jones sat as far from Jim Carrey as possible between setups. When Jim tried to break the ice, Tommy either ignored him or stepped away until filming resumed. It was the coldest professional relationship I've ever seen, a production assistant recalled. What worsened things was its one-sided nature. Jim kept trying early on to build rapport, only slowly accepting that Jones wanted no more than strictly professional interaction. He came in thinking they'd have fun as a villain team, a camera operator said. Instead, he met complete rejection and eventually focused only on his performance. Director Joel Schumacher, who usually maintained a positive set, found himself pleading to bridge the divide on a massive studio production. He arranged dinners and bonding activities that Jones repeatedly avoided and appealed to his professionalism. Nothing changed. Tommy had decided Jim was beneath him, and no director could reverse that. The result shows on screen. Critics notice a lack of chemistry between the villains. They rarely occupy the same emotional or performative space. This wasn't a directorial choice, but the product of a working relationship that never became collaborative. What you see isn't two villains plotting together, the camera operator observed. It's two actors who couldn't stand being in the same frame. Jim Carrey tried to make peace, publicly and privately. He told the story in interviews with his trademark mixture of humor and lingering hurt, framing the rift as a clash of styles rather than outright malice. "I was the new guy and he was the established Oscar winner," he said once. The line delivered with a shrug that invited both laughter and sympathy. He reached out through mutual friends, sent conciliatory messages, and performed the awkward, earnest rituals people perform when they try to repair something fragile. According to the version that circulated inside industry circles, Jones never responded. That silence, conspicuous, heavy, inexplicable, did something strange. It turned a personal falling out into a story that belonged to everyone. Where there had been two people with complicated feelings, a vacuum opened and rumor rushed in to fill it. Reporters, casting directors, and late-night comedians picked at the edges of the tale, and the narrative ossified into a moral parable about ego, power, and precariousness of fame. Jones's refusal to engage only fanned curiosity. When asked, he offered no comment or declined to talk altogether. When insiders whispered that it made clear he wouldn't participate in project with Carrey, that whisper became a rule. One proposed reunion was quietly reconfigured after producers were told Jones would not be part of it. Those behind-the-scenes maneuvers did more than rearrange schedules. They reshaped reputations. For Jones, the episode became a chapter in a longer story about being difficult on set, a label that, fair or not, can shadow a career in Hollywood. For Carrey, the split was humbling. He absorbed it like the kind of bruise that changes how you move for a while, a private discomfort that later became public philosophy. The experience hardened him against illusions and taught him to hold his career with a gentler hand. In interviews years later, he would fold the episode into a larger meditation on craft and boundaries. That talent and temperament are not the same thing, that being generous of spirit does not guarantee reciprocity, and that sometimes you must let relationships dissolve without drama, because the alternative is to spend a life litigating every slight. What makes the Jones-Carrey divide unusual is not that two actors fell out. That happens all the time. But that there was no tidy PR-friendly closure. No viral handshake. No stage reconciliation on a talk show couch. In an era when celebrity feuds are often smoothed over by well-timed Instagram posts and carefully choreographed meetups, the lack of spectacle here felt honest to the point of discomfort. That authenticity is the haunting part. A genuine, unresolved conflict in a business built on managed images. People found themselves drawn to it not because it was glamorous, but because it looked human. It reminded the public that fame does not prevent real pain. It only wraps that pain in a more visible package. Decades passed. Careers curved in different directions. Carrey continued to reinvent himself. Comic timing growing more reflective, roles allowing for vulnerability alongside the lunacy, and projects that lean into both his mischievousness and his quieter wisdom. Jones, for his part, retreated further into the reins of control he had always kept taut. The split remained a point of reference for younger actors and casting executives alike, a lesson in how fragile alliances can be, but also in how people choose to carry their legacies. And yet, if you sit with the story long enough, the most instructive detail is not who is right or wrong. It's the way both men's choices illuminate different responses to hurt. Carrey's attempt to bridge the gap, the messages, the jokes that soften the edges, the public attempt at forgiveness, show an essential generosity, but his acceptance of silence shows another maturity, knowing when to let go. Jones's silence, whether born of pride, pain, or simple indifference, illustrates the opposite truth, that boundaries can be absolute and that some conflicts are not meant for public adjudication. The industry adjusted. The unspoken rule against casting them together remained a cautionary tale. Sure, but it also sparked quieter conversations about how power functions behind the camera, about who gets to be irreplaceable, who is protected by reputation, and who pays when personalities clash. Young actors heard the story and learned the practicalities of navigating fame. Older ones recognized the cost of carrying a grudge. In lunchrooms and on sets, the tale became a way of teaching empathy and restraint. If someone cuts you off, sometimes the bravest thing is to keep moving forward anyway. If anything keeps the story alive, it's the way it resists a neat moral. There are no winners in a split that cost neither the world nor their talents, but does change the texture of both men's professional lives. The fascination is less about scandal and more about resonance. Everyone has experienced a rift, an unreturned message, a friendship that thinned into silence. The Jones, Carrey Divide gives that private sorrow a public mirror, and when people see that reflection, they don't just gossip, they take note, and often they learn. That is why the story endures. Not because it is salacious, but because it is instructive, a reminder that fame amplifies small human acts until they seem decisive, and that how we respond with humor, with outreach, with silence, or with acceptance defines not just careers but character. Carrey absorbed a lesson and let it shape a later life of work that acknowledged complexity rather than erasing it. Jones kept his silence and protected the contours of his privacy, whatever the cost. Neither path is wholly admirable nor wholly condemnable. Each is a human answer to a painful question. When people read the story now, they can do one of two things: replay it as another episode of celebrity drama, or use it as a quiet map for how to navigate their own ruptures. For those seeking inspiration, the better choice is clear. Reach out, try to heal, but learn also the quiet strength of letting go. In that, the tale of Jim Carrey and Jones becomes less about two actors and more about the hard, honest work of remaining humane in a world that rewards spectacle over silence.